Tonight's show, false flag alert. Immigration expenses could be used to distract from the economic collapse.
Live from the room of Mirror's studio, you're listening to Foster Brothers on Point. Turn your selector switch to the fire position. The show is now live. I'm Hayes Foster. My brother Stephen Foster is here with me in studio. We're the Foster Brothers. We're your hosts for the show. We're doing the show tonight, Wednesday, July 9th, a day early. Normally we do our broadcast every Thursday on Blog Talk Radio at 5:30 Central. We felt it was important to bring this information to you a day early. I guess everyone's probably seen the headlines. Obama is asking for $3.7 billion in emergency funding for the border crisis on the southern border here of the United States. What we're thinking is this possibly could be the whole border crisis itself may be used as a excuse for the economy collapsing at this point. Things haven't really been on solid ground in the U.S. economy for some time. As you all know, the bailouts of late 2008 that were in the Bush administration were only designed to prop up the economy for a period of time. And that bailout actually bailed out the other central banks around the world. That time has run out. We're on very shaky ground right now. Stephen?
I want to go ahead and get straight to some numbers so everyone can understand why we feel this broadcast is urgent. We've both been talking to some of our fellow patriots and hitting some of the forums and trying to figure out if anyone had a clue on why the government was staging this false flag down on the border. We feel like we've hit it, or we're close to the reason why we're doing it. It's a little bit premature to say for sure, but all the indications are saying this might be what they're up to. So let me throw out some numbers here. And just bear in mind, these numbers play a factor in everything. The U.S. population is 318 million people. The number of out-of-work people or out of the workforce number is 92 million. So you subtract the 92 million from the 318 million people to find the people that are working, and that doesn't include other sectors. There's some other factors. The numbers should be lower, but this is just what we have right now. But that number is 226 million people that are actually working in the workforce. So what we're going to do is Obama wants to give a $3.7 billion immigration funding to help the border crisis. It's a pretty big chunk of change. So you divide the $3.7 billion into the 226 million, and your number is 16. So that's $16 per person that everyone is going to pay. So, if you're in the workforce, you're going to pay $16 for immigration to come across and to break your nation's laws.
Now that's an interesting, $16 doesn't sound like a lot. However, that $16 technically is not our problem. And as you know, the border hasn't been secure for some time now. It wasn't secure under, it was a big issue under even Reagan. Bush did not secure it. Obama has continued the trend of not securing the border. Those people that are coming over, a lot of them, they're claiming they're children. The definition now of a child is anyone 35 and under. Yeah, that's something that's just come out recently. I didn't know that. Apparently, I've just come out of childhood myself, being my age. It's very interesting that they're claiming people 35 and under are considered children.
Well, that's interesting because I guess I'm a child. So this child can do a radio broadcast at least. But I think what we're trying to get at, and we've got a lot of evidence to back up what we're going to come at with you guys tonight. We think that, and we've known that there's a false flag attempt down at the border with this immigration because we've got several situations to where they're telling the Border Patrol to stand down. They're told them to take vacations, don't come into work this week. They're doing blackout on press. You can't talk to the press. You can't talk to anyone at your job. They're threatening people. Some of this information's coming out because there's some loyal Americans that work in Border Patrol that are speaking up. They're risking, a lot to say this. So this is not a normal situation to where they would be told to do a media blackout. A senator from Oklahoma has made requests to go down there and view the facilities. He's been declined. There's just a lot of red flags with the situation that this is it's either a CIA or, a White House operation occurring live as we speak. And so if that's the case, we have to wonder, what's the false flag agenda? And
that's a good question. And by the way, just the source for those numbers Stephen spit out at the beginning of the show, that's from the U.S. Census Bureau's website. What Stephen just asked, what is the false flag? You always have to keep in mind, what are they covering up? I came across something on Zero Hedge yesterday. Headline is the Fed going to attempt a controlled collapse? And we have the head of the Federal Reserve, Janet Yellen. She was speaking at the IMF, International Monetary Fund. It's not the Fed's job to pop bubbles. So what bubble is she talking about? What part of the economy are we looking at now that's a bubble? I mean, there's plenty out there. The housing market has started to come up in some areas, not every area. And, she's saying it's not the Federal Reserve's job to pop bubbles, which means if the IMS is asking the Federal Reserve, which is a central bank, to pop a bubble, apparently they're in the know about something. Let's see. That's what I'm talking about. To the average person, who's not a Wall Street trader, who just, they're just trying to, get a decent retirement, whether they're using hedge funds or whatever they're, using. If there's another bubble collapse, that could potentially, lead to another economy collapse. And the Federal Reserve at this point, they did the last bailout for all the central banks in late 2008. They aren't going to be able to pony up and just print this time. So there's going to have to be possibly hard assets confiscated. And by that I mean boats, cars, properties. That's hard assets. That's where we're at right now. And that's why I'm wondering if this southern invasion, maybe, Obama does get his money. Maybe Congress, says, hey, yeah, you can have that $3.7 billion, to try to control the border. Well, the question is, does Obama and some of the other people that are attempting to overthrow the government that are in on this conspiracy, I think personally they want these people to flow over, because if you remember when Obama was campaigning, he wanted a national, civilian force. You know what? Let's just go ahead and go to that clip.
We cannot continue to rely only on our military in order to achieve the national security objectives that we've set. We've got to have a civilian national security force that's just as powerful, just as strong, just as well funded.
There you have the sound clip. As you just heard. Now, he mentioned, national security. Well, first off, if you have an open border, you technically have no national security whatsoever. You basically have people flowing in, and you have the OTMs, which are other than Mexicans flowing in from Central America, some which are gang members, are convicted felons in their country of origin. We've really got some shady people coming over that could possibly be handed rifles and say, hey, you know what? White people and black people don't like you coming into your country. They're a threat. Maybe that's the national security force that he was speaking of, and they're flowing across the border as we speak.
Let me go ahead and try to spell this out for everyone and be as specific as I can about what we think is occurring. Number one, there's an immigration issue where they're coming across the border freely. The gates are open. They're telling the border guards to stand down. They're busing them to the interior. They're free flowing in. They've created a logistical system for them to flow in. So they're coming in right now. It's ages, anywhere from, I don't know, 5 on up to 35. So these are, prime age people for military operations. So they're coming in to our nation. And what does Obama want to do? He wants to give them money. He wants to throw $3.7 billion at them, which I suspect in the coming days that will go through. And I think there might be another one or two. I think that we're calling this early, and we're wanting to get this out there so we can all be aware, and maybe we can put an end to their little plan right now. But they're wanting to throw money at it, and then as we throw money at it, the economies start going to erode. Now, I think this is more of a 6-month to a year plan, honestly. I can't see them executing this in 1 month. But I think this is their long-term agenda where there's going to be a lot of money spent on them, and then our economy is going to come to a collapse point, and that's going to create a lot of tension. When I mean collapse, I'm talking, 1 out of 2 people losing their job. I'm talking the horrible one, the one that would be more similar to a depression, that they speak of from the 30s. But a major financial crisis in America, a lot of people on the streets, and all that anger is going to be pointed back and forth. It's going to be the classic blame game. And Stephen, simultaneously, as these other than Mexicans flow over the southern border, we have towns in California such as Merida, California, and they're trying to dump off these buses of illegals that they've, I don't know if they've been processed or not. They're just bringing busloads in, and you're having civilians show up, and they're not letting the buses pass. They're saying, hey, turn around. Our community did not agree to bringing these people in because they know they're bringing in MS-13 gang members. They're bringing in diseases such as tuberculosis, scabies. That's going on simultaneously. And so that's going to be played in the media as racism. Oh, what, you don't care about people who snuck into your country and broke the law, and you don't want to give them housing and free money for, get them on the EBT program? That's going to be considered racism. Watch the media within the next few weeks and months. Just watch it. Hey, just tonight, it was on the news that Obama's meeting with the leader of La Raza tonight. Kind of sounds eerily familiar when Prescott Bush met with the Saddam, or not the Saddam Hussein, but it was Bin Laden's family on the day of 9/11's false flag. The point being is that they're meeting with the right people to orchestrate this event. This is an organized event. There's going to be a lot of tension between the Hispanic population, especially the ones that have immigrated, the ones that are in the gangs. There's already a lot already here. That's fine if they've done it the legal way. There'll still be that tension between the whites, the blacks, and the traditional people that are here, pitted one against the other, especially when people are on the streets. They're desperate. They don't have food anymore. They're seeing their relatives die because they don't have medical treatment, because the jobs aren't there. It's a bad situation, and that could trigger a civil war. And Obama has been all about the Civil War with comparing himself to Lincoln. He was sworn in on Lincoln's Bible. There's been the parallels that they've been presenting all along, that where a lot of people thought that there might be a Civil War scenario with Obama. I think that's how we get from point A to point B. There's a lot more to fill in the blanks. We're going to do that a little bit later in the show, but we just wanted to put that out there, that we think that's it. We've been talking with people. What's going on? We know something's up. We think it's a false flag. What's their angle? We think this is the angle.
And just a little bit to add to the La Raza, which its interpretation is the race. La Raza's stated goal is to take back Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, and Southern California, which it felt that it was stolen from the country of Mexico. So these are militant people. They will pick up arms. Now, I won't say that Americans, we have a tradition of being militant too against, we won the Revolutionary War because we got fed up with it. So I don't discount average Americans because, most people just want peace. They want normalcy. But I believe the average American would take up arms again if they felt threatened by any kind of invasion, even if it is from the South. And I'm not promoting some kind of civil war. I'm just saying, just watch how the media portrays this as, if you are for the rule of law or for shutting the border down or for not giving free things to people who snuck into your country, you're the racist now. Just get used to that. Okay,
so when we were, debating this, for the past few days, and we were bouncing stuff off, I was on the Hagman chat room just 2 nights ago, and I was hitting up everyone to see if I could get a pulse on what everyone thought this was. It seemed to me like there was a few things they thought it could have been. I was getting a lot of FEMA Camp. They said that this was going to turn into a FEMA Camp situation, and this is how they were going to introduce the U.S. population to what FEMA camps were. The other thing that I was seeing people talk about beyond the FEMA camp
is the UN.
The UN is how they were going to bring the UN, and this was kind of part of the American Union, how they were trying to break away the borders. Some people are saying they're just trying to tear down the borders, and this is going to be the American Union now. Well, this is also a way for them to get the UN in. And so, Hayes, you want to go ahead and read that article from CBS News?
I'll go over some of the highlights here. The headline is, this is CBS News, UN urges U.S. to designate immigrants. United Nations officials are pushing for many of the Central Americans fleeing the U.S. to be treated as refugees displaced by armed conflict, a designation meant to increase pressure on the United States to accept tens of thousands of people currently ineligible for asylum. Now, this is the whole irony in it. Who do you think funds the United Nations? The United States. So this is kind of a circular argument. It's kind of funny that, there's UN pressure. I mean, what kind of comedy is that? We pay the checks to the UN. We're the financiers of the United Nations for the most part. We contribute more than any other country. So that I find that very interesting on the surface. Now, keep in mind, there has been talk of the UN. Remember, they were going to show up to Detroit if residents didn't pay their water bill and had the city cut off their water. So we see the UN really trying to be, the camel getting its nose under the tent. They want to have a presence in the United States. If you ever hear about the UN, they want to execute a peacekeeping mission in your town. Keep in mind, they're probably there to kick your butt, and that means you probably need to be locked and loaded and full battle rattle at that point. So the UN showing up at the southern border is a bad idea, or the UN showing up in any town in the United States of America. They're not needed. They're part of the New World Order. They're kind of their enforcement wing, with battled up armored vehicles. They're just they're a military force.
And this could be their introduction to the United States. So, those were the two scenarios. And the scenario we're proposing tonight, to where they create an economic situation based on the government funding them, is the third option that we're proposing, that is the most likely scenario. But all three scenarios don't sound very good to me, especially when they all begin with someone breaking a law.
Exactly. That's not how you do it. Let's go ahead and go to commercial. Foster Brothers on Point would like to thank MyOneSupply.com for sponsoring the show. MyOneSupply.com, suppliers of fine tactical gear. MyOneSupply.com carries EOTech, Eberly Stock, Trigicon, Blackhawk, and many more top-shelf brands. From the battlefield to your front door, check out MyOneSupply.com. And for a limited time, get 10% off your order. Enter promotional code TACZONE. TACZONE.
That's right, Hayes. Now, what I was going to talk about here a little bit more about the financial situation. There's an article here from the Daily Mail from the UK. It says more Americans than ever are not working. 92 million people are out of the workforce. The share of the Americans in the workforce have shrunk to the lowest in 35 years. A lot of people say that's a part of the aging population and unemployment. Well, yeah, both of those are contributors, but it doesn't help the economy when you have that many people. What is that, Hayes? That's like 1/3 of the population.
That's a high number, and the economy's in shambles. I don't think it's even debatable at this point. Everyone says the economy's great. Just drive around in industrial areas, and you'll see that a lot of buildings are abandoned or for lease.
This article goes on. It's all doom and gloom, talking about how we're in a decline. My point being is I'm trying to talk to the point of everyone saying on CNN and some of these interviews I've been seeing. There's a InfoWars interview out in Southern California where there was one protester out of dozens that were that she was actually pro-immigration for all these people, and she was like, "Oh, these poor people." Well, yeah, we understand that there's people in dire situations, but she said the reason why that we should do this is because we're the richest nation in the world. And I've heard this from other sources. We're so rich in America that can we not just take on a couple 100,000 more people or a couple million more? We're rich enough, right? We're the richest nation in the world. Why not? Okay, let me go ahead and pull out the CIA facts here. I printed this off from the CIA.com website today. And this is the richest nations in the world. Number 1, Qatar, Liechtenstein. Some of these nations never heard of.
Monaco,
Bermuda, Luxembourg, Singapore. There's another nation called Jersey, Norway. Long story short, the United States hits number 10 on this list. So we're the 10th richest. However, they say that the average income that makes us rich is $52,000 a year income level, opposed to Qatar at over $100,000. Now, the United States isn't the worst place in the world to live, but we're not the richest. So don't say that we should take all the refugees from South America. Some of these people are coming from Southern America, Central America. We can't take them all on. We're already in a crisis already. We don't need any more. So that argument's out the door. And
just remember, this crisis, this so-called crisis, is created. There are no accidents. This current crisis at the border, I believe it's going to be primarily used to cover up possibly how bad the economy's getting, or maybe a controlled collapse, like the article from ZeroHedge.com spoke of. What we're getting at is, yes, pay attention to what's going on at the border, but just remember, there could be something in the background going on that's even bigger than that, and all the pieces could be fitting together. If the UN comes in and you see up-armored UN vehicles riding through your neighborhoods, is that the police state you want to live in? Because it's not what I want to live in. We believe here at Foster Brothers on Point in traditional American values. Things such as, you work for a living. You may not like it. You may get out and sweat a lot, but, that's just how you make money. You don't sit around and, hope that, whatever, entitlement program, hits that card and, hopefully I can, get what I need. I mean, entitlement programs shouldn't be considered careers. They're just a way to get you back on your feet, for you to formulate a plan, maybe for you to start a business. That's what an entitlement program should be. It's not a career path.
Yeah, here at Foster Brothers on Point, our family lineage does go back, a couple hundred decades in the United States, but the point being is that our family is a working class family, and we're doing this radio show on the side because we realized that there wasn't many people putting themselves out there. There's a lot of people that I've heard, I don't want to talk about that because that's kind of a controversial subject. I agree with you guys, but I don't want to tell my coworkers that. Well, not only did we tell our coworkers, but we took it to the next level, and we're doing the broadcast. Hopefully, we can get a website up and start doing some blogging, but if you guys can support us, it'd be great.
Yeah, exactly. We've got one sole sponsor, myonesupply.com. Go to their website. They've got plenty of tactical gear. If you're a shooter, you're going to love it. You'll enjoy the site. That's who finances this whole operation.
Well, let's get back to the show topic. The point being is that the immigration issue is ridiculous. On the surface, the fact that they're doing the stand down, Obama's trying to throw money at it, they're busting them up. There's several confirmed sources saying that, this is, taxpayers' money, shipping them to the interior, which they shouldn't be shipped anywhere. They should be contained, if anything. And number two, the border should be shored up. The correct thing for Obama to do is I'm sending extra Texas Rangers to the border, and I'm paying them overtime to guard the border, and we're going to contain them in a cattle fence out in the field. It's just the fact that they're bringing them in. So let's just ship them up to New York City, and let's ship them over to California. They're spreading them out, and what they do is they give them a little certificate. Okay, so since you've immigrated, you got to show up in immigration court.
And I'll give credit to civilizations past. They built walls around their cities because it was exclusive. It was something, that if they didn't just let anybody in, and they put the wall up to keep, the riffraff out.
I don't feel like we have to explain why it's important to keep people out. We create a civilization where everyone goes through a school system. Everyone here is educated, almost always to a 12th grade level plus. A lot of people are grown up to love their country based on the freedoms that we supposedly have, which we don't really have anymore. But, they give us reasons and they give us hope for you to introduce a whole new culture with such huge numbers. It introduces opportunity for a dictator to take over this nation. And that might be Obama's security force.
It could easily be with the numbers that have flowed over. And as you've seen, Operation Fast and Furious, what was going on? Well, they were intentionally letting guns walk over. So we know that there's no limits to what they'll do as far as, they can arm some of these people who are coming in and say, hey, I guess you just saw that the people here don't want you. Maybe you need to be armed now. When they change their mind then. And if people think that the only thing that Fast and Furious was letting flow over the border was just, small arms that you could pick up at your local gun shop, it's well known, being where we're at in Nashville, there was a tractor trailer full of night vision goggles disappeared a few years back. I don't think for any minute that those night vision probably didn't go south of the border and probably in use with some of the cartels, or they could be being distributed currently at the new influx of 35 and under children that are flowing over.
Well, they might be building a force to come fight the American people once we start protesting. They're going to give us a reason not to like them. We don't like the fact they're breaking the laws to begin with, and we don't like the fact that we're about to foot their bill when they could have been stopped at the border to begin with. We're already not happy, but they're going to begin to up the antes. When Obama meets with the leader of La Raza tonight, I'm sure that they're going to work out some plans, I'm sure. It's just not good. Petraeus was at a conference recently, and there was a question asked, what's after America? Well, you know what his response was? North America.
North American Union.
So regardless of if it's a Civil War scenario, I think the Civil War scenario is the way to break the hearts and minds of America and to be willing to accept something of that nature. I don't think we would just accept it because the border's now broken. They're going to need a flashpoint, and they're probably going to keep the war short. They're probably really just going to try to weed out the patriots. So that's a good reason to stock up on ammo. Go to your local gun store and support your local gun stores.
Go to myonesupply.com to get tactical items also.
There's a lot of ways you get prepared. Store up on food and water, get your water purifiers, have a bug out plan. Try to designate a bug out location. Try to meet like-minded people. Go to blogs and forums and make connections. It's easy to do. We have to, use the as Alex Jones says, the information war, because if everyone knows what's going on, then we can win. If no one knows, we probably won't win.
And we're going to wrap the show up on that note. We just wanted to bring the show to you earlier this week because we felt like it was urgent. And Well, God bless everybody out there, and we thank you for your listening to our show.